the non-recorded, probably, absolutely non-rehearsed, off-the-cuff production of John Carstairs' Wobblies in the Moon with a cast of wonderful celebrities, whether or not they wanted to be in this or not. Please be nice to them because they're reading straight off the script and have had no practice, so it's going to be terribly funny no matter what we do. And we're just waiting on our maestro now. Oh. We may have to do we'll do our own sound effects. If you have any problems saying, well, I'm sure we can do our own sound effects. Alright, with sound effects by the cast and crew. The Venus Theatre of the Air proudly presents John Carstairs, Space Detective, in Wobblies in the Moon.
The scene is the moon. In glassite nailed palace, wall palace, foul deeds are about to be done. This is the job for John Carstairs, Space Detective.
John! Wake up! Thud. The Wobblies have broken loose! Explain, John. Oh shit, sorry.
You shouldn't like it.
Oh!
You can like it.
Bugger.
That's fair enough.
John!
And he's banned you from singing
Open the
because
doors!
it's
The Wobblies! Take it easy, Vera. The blasted things aren't fresh and fleshiness. I don't know.
Wait, there's another volunteer. Get somebody.
Can we have somebody? Can we have someone finally to do the job, please?
One brave or cowardly volunteer.
I need a hero.
There's a volunteer brand too.
Lionel.
Lionel.
I'm going to assist you.
Well, the world sees now is a real life hero. We even have a script.
Who do I have to fight?
You play John Carstairs. She's the hero.
I thought you were playing Zero.
started making 6:30 yesterday morning.
I don't like it. You must
Right, okay.
Sorry, I'm not from John. John! Let me in!
And not for that,
The
masquerade
Wobblies!
doing a milk.
Remember the microphone.
I'm really excited. Oh, this one.
Basically what he's saying is that human beings,
Step up to my
variations on a theme, but
Oh, Christ! Bugger.
I think my first line is,
This is accidentally
John! Let me in! Open the door! The Wobblies!
take it easy, Vera. The blasted things aren't flesh eaters.
Oh, but darling, if we should lose them! Our rare specimens walking around loose! Can you blame me for getting excited?
Oh, no, I suppose not. But open the door yourself. It isn't locked. Why don't you sit down on the bed? I want to look at the lunar appetite for a moment. It always helps me to wake up.
10 years.
It would be a shock for Gleason.
Then to see
One of them came into my room and climbed out the window. I encountered another in the corridor. When I tried to catch it, it hurled a metal at me. It's still here, in my shoulder.
The nettles of the lunar wobbly are strawberry-coloured downy objects, approximately 5 to 6 inches in diameter.
We'll get it out. There are loadsome creatures, but they're worth their weight in platinum.
An adult lunar wobbly can weigh up to 115 pounds.
You don't seem very upset about losing them. They're probably streaking back. As we speak.
We're Gleasons, aren't we? We're spending the weekend with it. The right kind of host doesn't let his guests down. If I'm any judge of character, he won't rest until he's tracked down some more specimens for us.
John Carstairs, you're the is an extremely wealthy man. He doesn't have to collect specimens for you.
Oh, he's a good egg, but vain. Endowing expeditions for us and collecting for us puffs him out all like he's a kid's toy balloon. He likes to pose as a scientific big shot.
And that was fun in a different way. And then this time, I didn't even know.
If I had a glassite wall palace, the moon decked out with 7 black plastic bathrooms, I'd forget about science with a capital S. I'd just be myself.
What makes you think a wealthy man can't be a humble soldier in the army of science and I need a drink?
Hey, we're not fighting anything. Am I a soldier? All I do is collect unhealthy-looking plants and hold down dull jobs on Earth. Utterly nightmarish plants. From glowing Venus to Neptune's chill domain. That is to quote from a book of poems I once read.
John, what are you driving at?
Well, do our expeditions save human lives? Is our work really important? Vera, I'm just a tired old man, killing a dull weekend with an elderly playboy in his pleasure palace on the moon. And if he hadn't sent me a spaceogram telling me he had an extraordinary new specimen, would I fall for it? Well, I'd be killing a duller one on Earth. Oh, heck.
You got up on the wrong side of bed. They? Old man indeed. You're a few hours short of past 28 on account of this is your birthday. But you're not so old. All you do to back you up is nice, juicy murder. You're disgusting. Besides, you can't help New York Police Department crack down on the criminal elements. You're just sore as Dickens because you can't let your research to go on rushing out like a turkey with its neck stretched out for a chopping block.
Well, you're a botanist 8 days out of 7, but right now I'm fed up. Fed up, you hear?
But John!
All right. Wobblies are rare. Wobblies are valuable. And Gleason is a resourceful collector. Look, we didn't even know Wobblies existed on Luna until he hoisted 3 adult specimens out of a mountain crevice, and he sent me that spaceogram. I was elated at first. Now it's worn off. And I'm bored, peeved. And if we've lost them, I just don't give a Neptunian peso.
Botanical Detective John Carstairs is going to eat crow. He's going to apologize for the most gracious toast a man ever had for putting those valuable specimens in a fragile glass herbarium. And if you think he'll go out and collect some more for you... You remember the Martian from World War?
18 years ago.
Oh, right, okay, sorry.
Muffled oath.
You're allowed to say a muffled oath.
Oh,
Carstairs snatches an oxygen mask from his...
I don't really have a good...
What was that? How horrible!
Relax, guy.
muffled oath. And furthermore, Nathan bonus.
Tense person.
Carstairs snatches an oxygen mask from an overnight bag, clamps it onto his face and rushes to the window. He throws the casement wide and strides out onto the balcony.
This is a time out reminding you that these people are actually on the moon. The moon. The scream came from downstairs. You can't see anything from here. The Wobblies won't be visible if it's clear.
It's coming. It's coming from Gleason's sleeping turret. He sleeps with his oxygen mask on.
No, I had it.
And his windows flung wide. I just wanted to make sure.
Sorry, people enough attention here. Can we have this line again, please? It's a really good line. Please listen to this line. It's well worth listening to.
Listen to this carefully written and mispronounced line.
But it was.
It's coming from Gleason's sleeping turret. He sleeps with his oxygen mask on and his windows flung wide. I just wanted to make sure.
I believe the chip butty run is here at the moment. We'll have a short intermission while people go and get chip butties.
There will be a chip butty interval. The cast are merciful.
Well, not that much because we'll come back to see
The little known line of the New Testament. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain chip butties.
Anyone got a problem from what was that?
You're absolutely right, there's no point pointing. It's not Anthony turned on.
What was that? How horrible. And then cue the Martian howl.
What was that? How horrible! The audience can join in as well. It's Marshmallow from Odd Worlds, the music. Yeah. Ooh la! Go on. Well, come on, you can do better than bloody that. Touch the table over there. 1, 2, 3.
I have just cued the narrator with a muffled oath.
Carstairs snatches an oxygen mask from an overnight bag, clamps it onto his face and rushes to the window. He throws the casement wide and strides out onto the balcony.
John! That scream came from downstairs. You can't see anything from here. The Wobblies will be visible this there.
It's coming from Gleason's sleeping turret. He sleeps with his oxygen mask on and his windows flung wide. I just wanted to make sure.
They are in the mood. Then, why are we standing here? Oh, he's dying.
Get back inside. You ought to have more sense than to come out here without an oxygen mask.
John, are the Wobblies attacking you?
It couldn't be the Wobblies, they're not carnivorous. And their nettles merely irritate the skin a little. Now get back inside before your lungs buckle into folds. Now, take it easy, Vera. If you drop dead, you'll only be sorry later on.
Minutes later, they arrive at Gleason's sleeping turret.
John, you'd better put your shoulder to it. It seems to be stuck. Oh, John!
Oh dear. Right.
I
didn't bring
frightened.
And the door being forced.
Come on! Why did I bother cutting a fucking desk?
I don't know, it's one place that you can like push up from one side.
Oh! My God! Look at those!
Literally.
3 huge Wobblies!
But what of Gleason, Vera?
He's dead, John.
Carstairs advances towards the bed, ignoring the nettles thrown at him by the Wobblies, although one grazes his right cheek and another embeds itself in his shoulder.
A pained gasp.
He briefly examines the corpse and draws the sheets up over it. With a shudder, he turns from the bed. Vera is staring at the Wobblies in terror, stenciled on every lineament of her twitching face.
Did these ghastly things attack him?
How many times must I tell you that Wobblies are not flesh eaters? They hold nettles to protect themselves from their natural enemies. Otherwise, they're harmless. When Gleason observed them in the mountains, he took copious notes. They're freakish but harmless perambulating plants.
For those who don't understand the term perambulating, it means it moves around on their own feet.
The appearance and behaviour of the Wobblies seem to belie Carstairs' words. They now hurled themselves across the dead man's bed, plucking with quivering tendrils at the sheets which covered him, hideously, man-like they seemed, with their grey and eroded-looking body roots writhing against the sheets. Tall they were, at least 7 feet in height, and proportionally broad of shoulder. The fact that they had 3 tendrils on each side of their torso-like bodies in lieu of arms, that they moved when erect on stumpy legs, which caused them to wobble grotesquely, did not detract from the illusion of humanness which their appearance conveyed. Once, jocularly, Gleeson had called Carstairs' attention to the fact that a wobbly, with its tendril arm extended and its body twisted sharply in the act of hurling a nettle, looked not unlike a picture in the old earth game called baseball. But now Gleeson was no longer capable of jocularity, and Carstairs' expression was as grim as death. He was sniffing at this air and staring at his hands, as though bewildered by his ability to flex his fingers when his spine was a column of ice, his tongue a swollen mass of jelly.
John! What is it? I don't smell anything.
It would be better if you did. Vera, this is devilish. Something utterly diabolical has occurred here. Yet there isn't a mark on him.
John! What is it?
It defies reason. There are unmistakable evidences of foul play, brownish mucous membranes, and dilated pupils.
We have to time the whole thing.
No, you got to snitch it.
That characteristic odour, but only his body exudes it.
Uncle always was eccentric, indefinitely like, peculiar, different.
Carstairs turned on his heels, his jaw hardened. The youth standing in the doorway had a sickly leer on his face. He was wearing black silk pyjamas and had thrown a monogrammed towel around his shoulders. Carstairs met Gleeson's weak-chinned, distant nephew several times on Earth, and had hardly been able to stomach the youth's exaggerated mannerisms. His delight at knowing that someday he'd inherit his uncle's fabulous wealth. Henry Gleeson Showalter was unmistakably intoxicated. This sneering manner did not seem to emanate from the alcohol that he consumed. His gaze was steady enough that his voice had a quality of smirking contempt for the living and the dead, which chilled Vera to the depth of her being. Before she could draw away from him, he patted her arm.
You're right in your element, aren't you? Helping him with his police work.
You cold-blooded little rotter. Your uncle is dead. Doesn't that mean anything to you?
John! Control yourself! Put it down!
In his present condition, how could he mean anything? He's been drinking steadily for hours.
Mona Clayton looked hard and cynical. She looked infinitely more cynical than Gleeson's nephew, but it was obvious that she had more strength of character than the weak-chinned, and that she knew when and how to keep her thoughts to herself. The fact that she was Henry's fiancée had amazed Carstairs at first. And after conversing with her in Gleeson's presence, he decided that she was nobody's fool. She was marrying young Showalter for the money he'd eventually inherit. She was a gold digger, if ever there was one, a hard, calculating little minx. Behind her in the shadows hovered Lee Chan, Gleeson's Chinese butler, his face drained of all colour.
Oh, master, he's dead. He was the kindest man I ever know. The very kindest man.
Captain!
An energy pellet thudded into the wall behind Carstairs' head, shaking the entire turret.
Startled, my word!
Come on! Come on!
The window flamed orange, and a thin ribbon of smoke drifted into the turret from the darkness beyond. Carstairs knew that an automatic held 5 energy pellets, and at one mighty bound, he leapt through the window into the cold lunar night. He could see a figure running swiftly away. Pulling his oxygen mask down over his face, Carstairs pounded after him.
Pound, pound, mutter, mutter, pound, pound, mutter, pound, mutter.
Ahead, Carstairs could see a small vacuum plane. The machine was poised at the edge of the platform, its forward struts gleaming in the earthlight, its magnetic traction vanes humming. Even as Carstairs' gaze swept over the plane, the fleeing figure heaved itself into the cockpit and bent sharply forward. Whoosh! The plane zigzagged along the edge of the platform and took off so abruptly that Carstairs nearly lost his grip on the strut that he'd made a mad dive for. Clinging to the plane with both hands, he let his long legs dangle and cursed himself for a madman. The plane rose sharply, then swooped, descending towards the foothills in a graceful, hawk-like glide. Carstairs looked down. He felt his spine congealing. Sheer height, when viewed from a solid structure, is seldom terrifying. It's quite otherwise when the observer is clinging to the thrumming struts of a circling plane. Beneath him yawned a dizzying gulf of emptiness, walled in darkness and substructured with peaks which looked like stalactites in reverse. Each one of which seemed capable of impaling him and rotating him in squirming agony until the end of time.
Oh, maybe this wasn't such a good idea.
Downwards the plane swept. It ceased to descend gracefully and now began to gyrate like a wounded blackbird. It swooped left to right and seemed to be on the verge of breaking up. Carstairs' nerves were still shrieking when the plane settled to the ground, the deep gulch between 2 peaks, and glided to a halt with a barely perceptible jolt. White-lipped, Carstairs dropped to the ground and tore round to the front of the plane. It was a reckless thing to do. The emerging pilot blasted from the hip the instant he discovered that he had a passenger. He stood half out of the cockpit, grasping a strut with one hand and emptying the automatic pistol at Carstairs with the other.
Come on!
You're a bum pilot, Bones. You're also a bum marksman.
Oh!
That's the reason.
That's what
you can't be
you
any
rotter!
good.
Ow! Oh! Ah! That's what you think.
Fight clean, Bones.
Oh! Ow! You rotter! I'll get you.
Carstairs raised his eyes and glanced around him. The wobbly he saw was a quarter the normal size. A baby wobbly, an unmistakable fledgling of the species that Gleason had captured and studied, was standing a few feet away, its tendrils fluttering in the hot air currents of the plane's turbines, its small body quivering.
Red light.
Right, okay. Quivering in infantile panic. Lifting Bowles' limp body in his arms, Carstairs made his way to the vacuum plane and thence back to the tower, sure that he had another corpse on his hands. Only when he removed a groaning Bowles from the rear seat of the cockpit did the truth strike him like a bolt from the blue. The big pugnacious bruiser was allergic to nettles.
Yeah.
So allergic that the shock of one entering his flesh had brought on a convulsion and laid him out completely. It wasn't such a rare mishap from a medical point of view, but it left Carstairs stunned and gasping. That big husky giant, brought low by a nettle flung by a baby wobbly. Carstairs deposited Bowles on the floor of Gleason's sleeping turret, directly under the dim cold light bulb. A big rectangular chamber had quietened down, for Vera Dawn had not been idle in his absence. She had sprayed a narcotic vapour over the 3 Wobblies and had locked them up in the metal herbarium. She then sent Mona Clayton back to her sleeping turret on the floor below and turned on Showalter, a glance so withering that he slunk furtively into the shadows. He was now standing in a dim recess behind Gleason's bed, his eyes boring holes in the gloom.
I lost my head when you swung at me. I've nothing against you, Carstairs, but when you came at me like that, I had to defend myself, didn't I? I'm a little hot-tempered, sure, but I didn't kill Gleason. It was that little hyena over there.
Why does everyone think of Gleason's nephew as a hyena? You blasted before I clipped you. You tried to shoot me down in cold blood. You tried to shoot Showalter down. Why did you crouch in the darkness outside that window and try to drill me?
I'll tell you why. I took my job here seriously. I like flowers. That may seem sort of screwy to you, but I mean it.
It doesn't. Go on.
Well, you see Gleason's orchids. Glass encase, sure, with air pumped in. Tropical terrestrial plants, nothing fancy about them. But I took a personal pride in them.
You did a good job. Raising perfect plants under artificial sunlight's a tough assignment.
That's it. Perfect! My orchids are perfect! Perfect, you hear? I like my job, and I wanted to keep it, but he didn't want me to. He came stumbling into the greenhouse last night, high as a kite. Tore my flowers up by the roots. He upset trays, turned a fire hose on my finest bed. Did you ever see my fine blooms flattened into mud soup?
Or perhaps I would have killed him myself. We're all savages when something rasps us in a vital spot. But you've had a few hours to cool down since then.
Yeah, but then he ran into his uncle like a dirty little schoolboy sneak. He accused me of getting tanked up and then throwing my own trays around. Gleason gave me my notice before he turned in at midnight. Called me a liar, refused to hear me out.
He wouldn't listen to any honest man or woman. He deserves to die. He's a hard man. Cold and unjust. There is no compassion in him. I'm glad he's dead. May you rest in Thomas James Gleason.
Go back to your room and stay there. If I need you, I'll send for you. You've been a good housekeeper to James Gleason. Why should you hate him so much?
It's not for me to be telling you.
Oh, Vera, I said that something diabolical had occurred here. I'm afraid it's worse than that. Listen carefully. I'm going to take one of the Wobblies up to my turret. I want you to bring me Gleason's notes, all of them. You understand? His day-by-day observations, the complete record of what he saw on the mountains when he studied the Wobblies from a blind, his speculations as to their feeding habits, the chemical and osmotic tests which he made on the 3 specimens, of which are now our guests.
But you've almost memorized those notes.
Yes, I know, but there are minor details I may have overlooked. Oh, and one more thing. Give me 15 or 20 minutes leeway before you snap it up.
12 minutes later, Vera Dawn tapped apprehensively on the door of Carstairs' sleeping turret.
Thud, thud, thud.
She had steeled herself to encounter an unusual manifestation of Carstairs' genius at work. But the sight that she saw when she shut the door firmly and turned to face her employer was so completely ludicrous that it chilled more than any gruesome exhibit would have done. One of the Wobblies was sitting upright in a chair by the window, its tender arms bound by thin wires and its stumpy legs interlocked.
Oh, yes.
The anaesthetic vapour which Vera had sprayed over it had worn off, and it was squirming about, emitting shrill ululation. Clamped to its rogose, tapering head was a semicircular metal disc, somewhat resembling an aluminium eye shield. From the disc, a thin glass tube descended to the creature's waist and branched off at right angles.
By the way, brief time out. Don't try and make sense of this.
I'm reading it and I can't make any sense of it.
I just thought I'd give one of them in advance.
And branched off at right angles to its body root. A few inches beyond the bent section of the tube, the glass terminated in a flexible rubber extension that carried the tubular portion of the apparatus across the floor to Carstairs' hand. Carstairs was sitting on the edge of his bed, pressing a large rubber bulb with 5-second intervals. Every time he gave the bulb a squeeze, a pale greenish fluid bubbled and frothed in the glass portion of the tube, occasionally ascending to the half disc on the creature's head.
Hugh Vera.
No, sorry, we've got Sir Marshall Hiles here.
No, we passed that.
Good Lord!
That's right.
Quiet, Vera. If the pressure goes any higher, we'll have a dead wobbly on our hands.
John! Are you out of your mind? Why did you want to do blood through that? Sorry. Why did you pressure? John! What do you mean? Are you in love with this wobbly? Sorry.
I'm taking its blood pressure. To be strictly accurate, it's sac pressure. Although the fluid that circulates in its veins actually contains actual blood platelets, the mononuclear cells containing basophilic granules, its blood pressure is unbelievably high now. So high...
John Carstairs, how can you take the blood pressure of a plant?
Well, Vera, I thought you majored in botany at college.
No,
Perhaps you'd better go back for another semester of intensive osmotic research. You know, the summer course for girls with very low IQs who can't quite make the grade.
What has osmosis got to do with taking the blood pressure of a plant?
Plenty.
And you doing kinky bondage stuff, sorry.
So most plants, as you know, suck nourishment from the soil through their roots by osmosis, draw it up through the woody part of their stems by capillary attraction, and a process known as transpiration. Now, all these processes are accelerated by the pressure of sugar and salt in the sap. In terrestrial plants, the nutrient fluid is an amalgam of common minerals. But in lunar plants, a different kind of nourishment is sucked up, and their veins are filled with specialized chemicals capable of accelerating its absorption. So when the osmosis is accelerated to an abnormal extent, a plant's blood pressure begins to rise. It may reach 20 or 30 atmospheres. Now, on Earth, many plants exhibit the symptoms of high blood pressure, but leaf or tendril evaporation drains off the excess nourishment and keeps them from going into convulsions. Here on the moon, there is no such environmental safety valve. The plants scarcely perspire at all due to environmental factors, and they have to eat sparingly, or else...
You'll have to read this one.
Hey, you wrote this.
Come on, it's your turn.
But no plants or animal eat sparingly. A dog, for instance, never knows when to stop. And that same rule applies all the way down the biological scale. And I'm really glad I only have 2 lines here.
Yes, true, but you're forgetting that living creatures gorge themselves only when there's an abundance of nourishment. Wobblies feast on a substance that's rare on Luna. Being perambulating plants, they have to suck it in from the nearly airless vacuum that is the moon's atmosphere through their body roots, and it costs them a tremendous amount of effort. Ordinarily, their blood pressure remains low because they've adapted themselves to an environment in which nourishment is scarce. But nourishment wasn't scarce here in the tower last night. I've a very sick wobbly on my hands. A wobbly that is going to put a noose around somebody's neck. That wasn't Gleason we heard screaming last night. It was 3 wobblies with high blood pressure, ululating in the sleeping turret.
Vera, it's your line.
Oh, shit.
So there's only 3 words.
Who's next, John?
You'll know when I'm sure. I've got answers to a couple of spaceograms first. And if what I suspect is true, the murderer is no ordinary criminal. He or she must possess a mind of the first order of malign cunning. You can do something for me, Vera. I want you to get them all together in Gleason's sleeping turret. Bowles, Showalter, Chinese butler, Mona Clayton, and that sweet white-haired grandmother, Miss Newton. Get them together and give me 20 more minutes.
When Carstairs finally appeared in the doorway of Gleason's sleeping turret, the 5 white-lipped people gathered there stared at him as though he were a visitor from Saturn. His expression was utterly inscrutable, and an almost godlike detachment seemed to emanate from him. He hoped that none of the 5 suspected that he felt like a scared kid, with one exploratory thumb poised over a high-voltage electric wire. Nodding at Vera, he crossed in silence to the bed where Gleason's sheet-covered body lay. He made sure that the light did not fall directly on his head and shoulders, and swept the 5 suspects with his gaze.
If there was any crime that you wouldn't have committed to get your hands on your uncle's wealth, Showalter, it would have been mentioned in whispers by anyone with an ounce of decency in him. You were quite capable of killing your uncle, and you would have experienced no remorse. I have a pretty complete account of your, well, I'll be charitable, call them escapades on Earth. I sent a spaceogram to the New York Police Department. Mr. Showalter, you have a record of 7 arrests, ranging from drunkenness to arson. You're a thoroughgoing rotter, but you didn't kill him because you were either a chemist or a genius.
Why are you staring at me? Do you think I killed him?
No, but you're suffering from the same disease as Showalter. I'll be charitable and call it ungratefulness. Gleason raised your salary every time you came to him with a hard luck story. The last time you rasped his patience a little, and he didn't give you as much as you thought you deserved. Consequently, you hated him. You're a pretty good guy, Lee Jan. Did you kill Gleason?
No, sir. Mr. Gleason, he was a pretty good guy himself. Kindest man I ever know.
Hey.
Yes, there are still a few kindly people left in the world, but you're not one of them, Bowles. Sulfuretted hydrogen, Bowles, paralyzes the respiratory system, causes rapid death. It's one of the deadliest gases known, comparable only to cyanide fumes in the swiftest of which it acts. If the concentration is marked, fatal effects by inhalation are immediate. Oh, you were clever, Bowles, posing as a humble lover of flowers, an eccentric with only one consuming passion in life, a simple gardener, living only for your plants.
You're crazy, Carstairs. What are you driving at?
You were not only interested in orchids, Bowles, you were interested in Wobblies. And you persuaded Gleason to let you see his notes. Your prints are on the sheets Miss Dawn brought to me. You are also a toxicologist, Bowles. You worked in a chemical laboratory on Earth, and you knew that sulfuretted hydrogen had one advantage as a killing agent.
Gas!
It leaves an odor, the strongest odor of any lethal chemical, one that hovers in the air and impregnates the flesh of the victim.
He lies! Oh, darling, defend yourself. Tell him.
Oh, darling, is it? I thought so, Bowles. You knew that sulfuretted hydrogen leaves an unmistakable odor, but you also knew that Wobblies feast on it. It's their natural source of nourishment. It clings to the walls of deep gulches in the mountains, and they suck it up through their permeable body roots. And so last night you treated the 3 Wobblies that Gleason had captured to a feast. You smashed their glass herbarium and released them, after pumping sulfuretted hydrogen into Gleason's sleeping turret through a sprayer from outside the window. You knew that Wobblies can sense sulfuretted hydrogen halfway across the moon. You figured they would streak like starved bloodhounds to Gleason's turret. They did. Vera Dawn encountered one in the corridor and one in her sleeping turret. But Wobblies are like that. They know that a roundabout way is often the quickest distance between 2 points. They climb down outside and enter through the windows that you had purposely left open. When their blood pressure rose...
Sorry, time it. Remember, you're on the moon.
And when violated. It was then that Miss Dawn and I raced downstairs to discover that they had sucked up all the sulphuretted hydrogen in the air, leaving it crisp and odourless. Gleason usually slept with his windows thrown wide, but last night you must have had to raise the pane to pump the gas in. Although we found the casement the way you'd left it, there was still air in the room. The Wobblies would have sucked that giveaway odour out of Gleason himself. But we got to him in time, and a little of it still lingered when I bent over him.
Da, da, da.
You thought the Wobblies would clear away every trace of the gas and make it look like Gleason had died of natural causes. But when you saw that I had it tabbed as murder, why then you tried to throw suspicion on Showalter by accusing him of upsetting your trays last night and subtly hinting that maybe Gleason hadn't quite believed his nephew's version of the affair either.
Da, da, da.
In other words, you implied that Showalter was in danger of being cut off without a cent.
That's a lie. You're trying to frame me, Carstairs.
Oh, do you think so? I've got a spaceogram here from Earth that says you and Miss Clayton have been partners in crime for a decade.
Ooh!
You're wanted for blackmail and murder by the San Francisco police.
Ooh!
It was beautifully planned, Bowles. All you had to do was murder Gleason, and the rest would unwind like a carefully coiled spring.
Naughty, naughty girl.
Showalter would inherit a fortune, Mona would marry Showalter, and then you and Mona would take a vacation somewhere with Showalter's inheritance in an overnight bag to brighten the trip. But you should have picked a less allergic partner, Mona. I suspected him from the first. But what really clinched it was his aversion to nettles. He plucked most of the nettles out of the Wobblies with tweezers before he released them.
Aha!
It was just blue funk, I guess. He couldn't bear the thought of being in the same tower with nettle-hurling Wobblies already around him.
But one of those Wobblies hurled the nettle at me, John. How did you? You've got one in your shoulder now.
I said most of the nettles, Vera. You see, when I examined the Wobblies a half hour ago, I couldn't find a nettle in them. And I knew then that I had it. And I could see the noose tightening around his neck. Well, the fact that he must have overlooked 3 nettles deep in the pouch of the tallest Wobbly, that won't influence a jury very much. 3 nettles. One for you, one for me, and this one for evidence.
Crash!
Splinter, splinter, splinter. Carstairs crossed the room in a flying leap. For barest fraction of a second he paused to hurl the casement open and clamp on his oxygen mask.
Oh, no you don't!
Cursing himself for a sissy, Carstairs tore into the lunar night. His reluctance to tear his face to ribbons had proved to be a costly mistake. Bowles was 30 feet away and running along the edge of the platform towards the weaving spiral of light. Instantly, Carstairs had a vision of himself descending once again into the foothills on the thrumming strut of a vacuum plane. It was an appalling vision and it chilled his heart like ice. It stopped him in his tracks. He hurled the nettle with surprising ease, his body twisting a little like a pitcher in the old Earth game called baseball. Spinning about on his toes, Bowles tottered for an instant at the edge of the platform, then plunged downwards, his body revolving as he fell towards the peaks which looked like stalactites in reverse, each one seeming capable of impaling him and rotating him in agony forever. Carstairs turned away, shaken and a little sick. It seemed like an eternity later when he heard Vera's voice. There was a shriek. Didn't hear the shriek.
Darling! After operating on both of us, there's still one nipple on my shoulder and one in yours. You can't just pluck them out.
Oh, no, I suppose not. Now, where did I put that antiseptic? woman a compliment, she always stays still for a minute. I never know it to fail.
You mean you didn't mean that about my voice?
Oh, certainly. But I wanted to get you to hold still.